I'd like to call the March 10th, 2022 meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Council to order at 4:02 p.m. Roll call, please. All present except for council members Roussel and Kognovich.
Agenda item 2, executive session. We weren't notified after the agendas went out, but we do have something for executive session.
Anyway, can we please go to item 3?
Item 3,
Thank you, Stacy.
proclamations. And I will read it. A proclamation declaring Thursday, March 10th, 2022 as Joseph Joey Andrew Stuffelmeyer Day in the parish of Plaquemines. Whereas Mr. Joey Stuffelmeyer was a resident of Plaquemines Parish since 1992, born on the outskirts of the Houdat Nation, he was extremely proud to be from Plaquemines Parish, where he embodied every bit of vibrance, charm, and loyalty that comes with being a part of his hometown of Plaquemines Parish. Whereas after graduating from Belle Chase High School in 2010, Joey enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, and whereas in 2012, Joey was deployed to Afghanistan as a heavy equipment mechanic, specializing in the maintenance and repair of heavy equipment such as tanks and other combat vehicles. Whereas in 2015, Technical Sergeant Stuffelmeyer continued to serve his country by enlisting in the Louisiana Air National Guard, and whereas on March 10, 2015, Technical Sergeant Stuffelmeyer married his sweetheart Hillary in the hometown of Belle Chase, and whereas Joey was about love and family and being the most devoted dad to their two beautiful daughters, Joelle and Vivian Stuffelmeyer, and whereas Joey played an essential part during Hurricane Ida as he proudly repaired the generator at the Belle Chase Water Plant, which provides water to residents' homes and provides fire protection. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Plaquemines Parish Council represented by the duly authorized chairman, Vice Chairman Richie Blink, and by concurrence of the Plaquemines, or the parish president Kirk M. Lapine, representing the Plaquemines Parish government, that it hereby declares Thursday, March 10th, 2012 as Joseph Joey Andrew Stuffelmeyer Day in the parish of Plaquemines.
I'd like to respectfully ask for a unanimous second on this item, please.
No objection.
Okay. Sounds like all are in favor for that, and we can move to a vote. It passes unanimously. Dr. Gui, you'd like to say a few words, please?
Yes. Looks like a Buras reunion out in the audience today. I've known Joey his whole life, but I've also known his mom and dad. We were all down the road crew, and we spent a lot of time together back in the 80s and 90s. And the one thing I want to say about Joey is I got reacquainted with Joey after his time in Afghanistan. And what struck me the most was that little boy became a man. And from that day on, whenever I had a conversation with him, he was a man. And you should be extremely proud of the son you raised. And Hillary, I'm so sorry for your loss also, hon. I know we've known each other for many, many years. With that, I would like to open the podium to anyone who would like to make any comments.
Mr. Chairman, Councilman, thank you for presenting this. I'm going to be very short and introduce a gentleman to come up and speak a little bit more than I am. But a couple words I wanted to say. I want to thank Dr. Gui and his able assistant, Leslie Hyatt, for the hard work that they did putting this together. I appreciate it very much. Joey was a good kid. Back when he was in high school, He was a normal teenager. And at one time, I told my wife, I said, this boy will never amount to anything. Boy, was I fooled. He goes from graduating to the Marines. He come out the Marine. He went in as a boy, came out as a man. So with that, I know Joey served in Afghanistan. When he came home, he told his family, don't ask me what I seen or what I did. So I'm not sure that didn't have something to do with his demise. It's very common for these young men to take their life after they see action in combat, and he saw action. So with that said, I'm going to introduce his Reverend, y'all all know him, Reverend Bell, to say a few words on Joey's behalf. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jerry. Mr. President, Council, thank you so much for allowing me to be here. Good afternoon to all of you. Many of you know me as an attorney long before I became a pastor here in the parish. I've been an attorney in Plaquemines Parish for 38 years. I've been a pastor for almost 20 now. It's in the latter job that I get to know people. I used to tell people all the time, if I didn't like what you did as an attorney, I'd just sue you. As a pastor, if I didn't like, or if I wanted to know somebody, or they were doing something that needed correcting, I had to find out what was going on underneath at the base. You had to learn about the people. And I was blessed in 2015, for the past 7 years or so, to know Joey Stiffelmeyer. Hillary started coming to our church, and then her mother, Bridget, and then, of course, Joey started coming as well. And I was honored to perform their wedding ceremony in our church. And I was impressed at that time. After the wedding, we went down to the Chevron Park for their reception, and I was just amazed at the number of fine young couples and friends that they had, the breadth of their association. And then at his memorial service in our church, we were probably a super spreader event. We had over 400 people come for that ceremony, and I was so impressed with the breadth again of the people that Joey had touched in his life. And if you'll forgive me, I understand church and state very well, but I have to say this. My Lord Jesus said this when he was talking about people. He said, a good man out of the treasure of his good heart brings forth good things. Now you can read that either way. A good man brings forth good things, or a man who brings forth good things out of a good heart is a good man. And in my book, in my experience, Joey Stiffelmeyer was a good man, because I never knew him to bring anything but good things forth. From his work in our church, he never refused me in anything I asked him. I had the pleasure of working with both he and Hillary in their marriage and some of the things in their life. Everything that I saw this young man bring forth was good. And so therefore, I am proud to have known him and to call him a good man. And thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you, Pastor.
If we could have the family come up, we have the proclamations for your safekeeping. And the family would like to take a photograph. We'll take that photograph up here, guys. Go around the side.
Madam Director, wants to represent the president. You want to take a picture? Oh, somebody ought to do it. Be a part of the administration, take a picture.
Are y'all able to scoot in some over this way? I can't get the whole.
Sweetheart.
Ren. Good. There's not enough people here. I want to look at it.
I'm asking you to do an introduction.
I know what you're asking. Go ahead, do it. You can do it, I'm going down. It needs unanimous.
Well, I'm saying, yeah. You don't want to do it.
But next week.
I'm in San Diego. Well, somewhere.
Mr. Blank?
Yep, certainly. Oh, moving on to agenda item number 4, please.
Oh, Mr. Blank, I would like to say
Oh, go ahead, Mr. LaFrance, I'm sorry.
just the gentleman who we are talking about never did meet the man, but it truly sounded like he was a really great guy. There's no greater love for mankind than a man that is willing to lay down his life. And it's people like him that make the sacrifice, that make it possible for us to enjoy the freedom that we have, that we truly take for granted. My condolences goes out to the family. Thank you.
Thank you for those words, Mr. LaFrance.
Agenda item 4, status report by the parish president.
There is none.
Item 4A, 1, old business, 2, new business. Oh, update by the charter directors, sorry.
Commissioner Newberry?
Yeah, I have a question. I know, Crystal, I keep coming back to you about mosquito control. So I appreciate your report on that. I think I had to ask my assistant to put something out on my District 6 page because the people are getting antsy on when they're going to see the mosquito trucks. I know I keep asking you this. So is that a definite date, March 18th, and when we can start seeing some trucks out on the road? Just to confirm.
You'll start seeing trucks next week, Miss Trudy. They've gotten the trucks ahead of schedule, so the trucks will be out next week.
Okay, while we're on the subject, did you get wind of any, we already had chemicals in place for this year, or had the price of chemicals gone up too?
We still had some chemicals in place, but I'm sure, I haven't talked with them about that, but I'm sure there's probably been a price increase on chemicals.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board for the charter directors? Any questions from the audience for the charter directors? Oh, statements? None? None? Okay, moving on, please.
Item 5, bids and advertisements. There are none. Item 6, beer and liquor licenses.
All right, cue in if you have one. Dr. Cooey?
Yes, I have one for MMCS Services. That'll be the old, the store at 9144 Highway 23. Can't remember the name of the store.
Commissioner Bartholomew?
Yes, I have one. Who that bar? Who that bar in the Point LaHash area? The owner of at P.O. Box 174, Point LaHash, Louisiana. Highway 15 address is 17059, and it's located in the Dave and Point LaHash area. Name is Brad Bartholomew. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bartholomew. Councilmember Arborough?
Yes, I have one for Asahi Sushi Bar at 102 Woodland Highway, Suite 18.
Thank you all very much. Moving along to the building permits, item 7. Oh, okay. Gui offers, Arborough seconds. Machine's going to be open soon. And all in favor?
Item 7A1, Whitney Oil and Gas LLC, application number 2022-190 dated February 22nd, 2022. Wheel wash, install pile clusters, drill the GIB location S caster well, and install well protection structure and 2 4-inch flow lines, Garden Island Bay Field. Councilmember Bartholomew.
I'll second. Any questions? Machines are open. All in favor with Black abstaining?
Item 8, introduction of ordinances and resolutions. I have a few. The first is for Councilmember Konovich, an ordinance authorizing the acceptance of a donation for the Libraries Department and to amend the Library Services Fund 2022 operating revenue expenditure budget, Libraries General Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. The next is for Councilmember Bartholomew. An ordinance to enact Chapter 19, Article 1, Section 19 through 3, to provide for the standards of maintenance on certain private roads and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. The next is for Councilmember Bartholomew. A resolution authorizing and directing the parish president to provide a list of all contractors hired by Plaquemines Parish government to handle Hurricane Ida debris removal, a description of the work that was done and the amount they were paid, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. For Councilmember Bartholomew, a resolution authorizing and directing the parish president to provide a list of all parish employees who worked for Hurricane Ida and were paid beyond the normal 40 hours per week, which may be reimbursed by FEMA, the number of hours worked, and a description of the work done, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. The last for Councilmember Bartholomew, a resolution authorizing and directing the parish president to provide a list of all contractors hired by the state of Louisiana to handle Hurricane Ida debris removal in Plaquemines Parish, a description of the work that was done and the amount they were paid, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. The next two are for Councilmember Black, a resolution granting conditional approval for a plan of subdivision of tracts A and B B-2, Section 2, and 73, T14S, R24E, Southeastern District of Louisiana, west of the Mississippi River, Belle Chase, Parish of Plaquemines, into lots 1 through 54, Square A, lots 1 through 30, Square B, lots 1 through 24, Square C, Barrier Estates, and the dedication of George Boulevard, Numa Street, Alvin Street, and Alvin Circle, and dedication of drainage servitudes and dedication sewer servitude, Belle Chase, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, as shown on the plans and plat of the survey, Dufresne Surveying and Engineering, Inc., dated June 1st, 2021, the owner having fulfilled all the requirements of the subdivision and re-subdivision ordinance of the Parish of Plaquemines without cost to the Plaquemines Parish government and to the Parish of Plaquemines, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Black, a resolution conditionally approving the plan of re-subdivision of a portion of Tract 5-E, Section B of Belle Chase Plantation to Cypress Park Subdivision, Phase 2C. Phase 2C containing lots 241 through 285, all without cost to the Plaquemines Parish government or the Parish of Plaquemines, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. The next is for Councilmember Newberry, a resolution urging the state of Louisiana through the Department of Transportation and Development to allocate a portion of available infrastructures funding to raising a portion of Louisiana Highway 23 and to provide for other matters, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. The next is for Councilmember LaFrance. An ordinance declaring a temporary housing need exists pursuant to subsection 6 of Section 12 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance of the Parish of Plaquemines, enacting rules, regulations, and fees thereof, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And the last is for Councilmember Blink, an ordinance to amend the 2022 operating revenue and expenditures budget to accept a donation from the Empire South Pass Tarpon Rodeo, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And that is it. (9A1) is deferred. 9A2, an ordinance to establish divided precincts within Plaquemines Parish and to adopt a redistricting plan for the Plaquemines Parish Council, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer.
Offered by Black, seconded by Arborough.
And we did have an email that came through. Would you like me to read it now?
Yeah, why don't you read all the emails that were not read last time as well?
I don't
They were
have.
read after the vote.
Okay.
Do you have those?
I do not have those with me. No, sir. I can read this one. This is for Barry Becknell. I support the council considering item 9A2. I believe the process for redistricting was rushed at the last meeting. Many residents did not have the opportunity to see any maps before the item was considered. I am especially concerned about the process that was used to pass the redistricting ordinance at the last meeting. Councilmember LaFrance stated that he made up his mind before the meeting and nothing would change his mind. It didn't matter if he saw another map or 100 maps. This happened before any members of the public were allowed to speak on the item. This is what is wrong with Plaquemines Parish government. Why have the public hearing if you are not going to decide how to vote before you hear from the people? Then a vote was taken before the public comments were finished. Everyone who emailed their comments were ignored because the comments were read out after the vote. And you wonder why so many people show up at meetings. Why show up if you're going to make up your mind before you even hear from us?
Yeah, thank you. And we'll wait for Kim to come back with the rest of them to be read. But I'm not sure who that gentleman is, but he's absolutely spot on, in my opinion. You know, I introduced this because it took quite a while for us to get it done. Everybody on this council knew there was an alternative plan being worked on in conjunction with a few school board members, and I got to give credit to a couple of school board members. I know Nico Tesfich spoke last week, as well as Daniel Morrell's here today. They really took off with this alternative map because they saw issues with it, approached some council members with it. I know the council members who worked on this particular plan notified the chairman that another plan was being worked on. All we wanted done was to have the alternative plan put side by side with the chairman's plan so the public could see both simultaneously. There's no doubt that this situation was rushed. We have until early May to make a decision and adopt maps. So there was no reason for this particular map to be introduced literally 2 days after we submitted the alternative maps for the council and the school board to review. We wanted those review times to be a little bit longer. You know, we talk about transparency all the time on this dais, and it's a shame that the public, as that email just suggested, did not have an opportunity to see an alternative. You know, this happens once every 10 years. 10 years ago when it happened, the maps were wrong. It was politically driven, it was gerrymandered, and it was a travesty to the parish. Yeah, some people like it, some people don't, but that was totally rushed as well. But they at least had the opportunity to look at 3 different alternatives back then. Now we come along and everybody wants to talk about change and doing things right and making things, you know, more transparent, and yet this is the furthest thing from those things. And it's a shame. You know, I'm sure this will fail, and I'm sure there'll be other measures taken after this fails, but it's my duty to introduce this and now offer it today for a vote because of the work that a bunch of us did in conjunction with the council and school board. And I want to thank, you know, Dr. Gouy for being very transparent and scheduling public meetings, asking the chairman to hold off on voting until we can have public meetings that show both sets of maps. You know, I want to thank Mr. Albro and Ms. Newberry for going through, and you know, Ms. Newberry's district gets affected really the most. You know, my district doesn't change too much. You know, I get more people in Mr. Kognovich's map. So, you know, people may ask, hey, you know, why are you doing this? Why are you worried about it? It's going to be the same district for you. Look, I'm not running again. And I think that the parish needs to be made whole and needs to be done correctly. There's no reason this should have been rushed. You know, my major issue is that the deviations when Mr. Kognovich presented his map to us in Point LaHash months ago, the deviations that he had set up for the 3 most populous districts in Dulces, which is 2, 3, and 4, was a plus 738. People can like it or not, but the reality is those are the districts where people are moving, and those are the districts where we have current homes being built, or homes that were built, it was not counted in the census. So those numbers are going to be a lot higher than what they were in the census. Therefore, the deviation should be a negative. With the version 2 maps we proposed, the deviation in those 3 districts was a minus 6.98. That allows for that growth to absorb into those deviated numbers. It should not be the opposite. You know, and, you know, I'm going to sit up here, I'm going to defend my constituents in my district because it should be one man, one vote. And for a long time, and you look at the old numbers, is that my vote for my constituents literally counted as half because of the population discrepancies. So I'll stop. I know I'm going to have some questions, but I yield my time now.
Commissioner Newberry.
So I think some things were said at the last meeting. A lot of things that came out of some council members' comments were false. I don't think none of us was trying to hide anything from the public. All we doing is trying to present another map to show the public. We're just asking for the courtesy to educate the public. As far as the Jesuit Bend area, some people think it's special, and they're like, what makes your district more special than my district? I don't think that's the case. I think parish is a very special parish and very unique. I think we have an opportunity here to make the Jesuit Bend area whole and compact, nothing illegal about it. We covered, as Nico, if you go back into the last meeting, Nico had a presentation and everything we've done by the books, all the legalities. Representation to me is fair. By splitting District 8, I think those people do not get fair representation, and I'm not saying they don't, but the point is sometimes when you have a member that runs in a different location, it's understanding the area. But I mean, you know, one way or the other, you do represent the parish as a whole. And my logic is what makes these maps what makes sense. I think these maps make sense. Like I said, we've done everything legal. And we just wanted to put it out there to the public, you know, and as we said, we are elected by the people, and we need to give them a fair share and fair comments on what we put out there. And I think we had an obligation to put 2 separate maps out there. I think if we would have did that and maybe come to some type of agreement, whether we change this map or whether we change that map, I don't have the answer, but this is where we are. It was after going back and looking at the last meeting, realizing the fact that the chair got the copy of the map on February 8th, and he decided to put it for introduction on the 10th and vote on it right away. So what does that tell you? So I just want to throw it out there. That was kind of disappointing on my end. But here we are today. I appreciate Bo for moving forward with this, even though the other maps were voted on and passed. I yield.
Mr. LaFrance.
Yes, I represent District 7. I speak to my people. I represent District 7. And District 7 said that they were satisfied with the maps. I represent them. I do what they tell me to do. That's who I represent. But Mr. Black, when you talk about transparency, when councilmen asked Mr. Garrett to have a copy of the maps that y'all was working on, that Mr. Garrett told us that we had to speak to other people from the school board or the council for us to see the map. That isn't transparency. I'm sorry for you. That is not transparency. Now, some people look at a bottle of water as half full, half empty. Now, some of you was complaining about the Jesuit Bend area, that it was separate, with the people from down the road and the people from up the road. You can look at it with your concept of going with 5 and 2. Jesuit Bend area have 2 council members. And as council members, the people who we represent, they want clean water, they want their trash to be picked up, they want the property to drain, they want mosquito control. These are the things that they want. I know for a fact there isn't a phone call that came from the people from Jesuit Bend area to Mr. Blank that he didn't address. And Mr. Blanken is an honorable man. So, with that, the concept that y'all trying to use is sort of like separate but equal. Mr. Bartholomew, did you hear that before? Separate by equal? Separate but equal. That sound like Jim Crow to me. Was Jim Crow a friend of yours, Mr. Bartholomew? No, he wasn't a friend of mine either. So, when we talk about transparency, don't just throw it out. I didn't have a chance to even look at it. And I don't feel comfortable about any map when I got to ask other people and to see the map that Mr. Garrett, who we hired, the council hired and the school board hired. We shouldn't have to ask no other people. The council hired Mr. Garrett, not individual councilmen. So with that, I yield.
Mr. Black.
Yeah, let me address a few of your comments. I'm going to address the Jim Crow one first because that's absolutely ridiculous to even bring that up. The second version provides for 2 minority districts, the same as the first version. There's no, to even put that in people's minds is an absolute disservice and slap in people's faces because people are not stupid. You're basically trying to tell the people in the public that I don't even want to talk about it because it is absolutely just, it's disgusting, Mr. LaFrance, to bring that up. We worked very hard to make sure that we maintained 2 minority districts within that version 2. Very hard. So I'm going to move on from that. As far as the lack of transparency that you mentioned, and I'll let Mr. Garrett get on the mic. At any time, Danny did, well, first of all, I'll say this. We had more problems getting those maps than anybody else. I respect Danny. I think he's a good attorney. I think he gives good advice and good counsel. I sometimes disagree with him. However, I do respect his opinion. In this situation, I've had issues with Mr. Garrett producing the maps, producing the data, answering the phone calls, responding to school board members, responding to some council members in a timely fashion. I had issues with transparency with Mr. Garrett. You know, at no time did I tell Mr. Garrett or anybody to my knowledge not to share maps. Matter of fact, as Trudy just said, we begged for the maps on the 8th, in which we finally got because we wanted the maps to be published in the Gazette prior to the council meeting. So why would we want the maps to be published in the Gazette prior to the council meeting so that the whole public can see if we were not being transparent? That's all we wanted was transparency. But nobody else wanted it published in the Gazette. So what Mr. Garrett did, I had to call him directly on a Friday because the deadline was at noon, and you can ask if the Gazette's still here to get a copy of the maps in a particular format. When they got the maps, they waited, they couldn't publish them, and on Saturday I got a phone call from the Gazette and said we can't publish your maps because it was in the wrong format. Then today, I'm looking for the maps because it was another version or a minor adjustment. The council secretary doesn't even have the maps. Why doesn't the council secretary have the maps? But she has the ordinance. That baffles me. So we talk about transparency. However, we don't have the maps. The Gazette doesn't have the maps. We just got the maps today. Stacy brings up the email. The first thing she says is, let me read the email. But last 2 weeks ago, nobody had emails. The public wasn't provided that period to be able to share their opinions. So we talk about transparency up here. I think this group that has introduced this and has worked on it, and the school board has been more than transparent. So I hope that addresses your issue of transparency, because at no time did any council member tell Danny not to share maps. At no time did any other council member, besides Trudy, Dr. Gooey, and Corey, ask to see these maps or ask to be involved in the construction of these maps. I never got a phone call.
It was clandestine. We didn't know.
Clandestine. Clandestine. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was going on over at the school board. We had no idea until it was more or less a done deal. It was like a word on the street kind of thing.
Clandestine, the word on the street. So now we're operating on the word on the street. I love that term. That's a good old term.
All right, Dr. Gui, you're next in line.
You know, Mr. Chairman, I have the floor. I mean, you're going to sit there and basically say that we're operating in a clandestine fashion?
Absolutely. I'm right here, right in the middle. Yeah, right here.
You know, Richie, I think you showed your lack of professionalism earlier, so I'm not going to sit here and go back and forth with you and entertain big words that you don't really understand.
Yeah, but you know, the difference between you and I is I don't want to be in the good old boys club. I want to stand up for the people here.
So why didn't you let the maps get released in the Gazette?
I have nothing to do with any of this. Like, I'm just a regular voting member like any of this. I didn't take the lead on either map. Councilmember Kognovich took the lead on one side, and I guess y'all let the school board handle this.
Stafford, put the maps up. Because I want to show, you know, do you have both sets of maps? Do you have the map where the school board member's street is carved out in District 7 so he can be in District 8 so he can run again? On Milan, I think it's Milan Drive, I don't know. But it's literally carved out of the marsh. You can't drive through District 8 without going through District 7. You can take a boat.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's how it was last time.
And so it was like that 10 years ago, that makes it right.
No, look,
So what we tried to do in the maps, if you pull up the maps, we'll go through the districts kind of from the bottom up. And you'll see that the version 2 has clean lines, clean, straight, recognizable lines.
Which map is it?
Dr. Gui, you have something to say?
Yeah, go through, start at 9. This is the only place that it's not clean because we had to pick up numbers for District 1 on the base. But basically, this is the map where District 9 is basically middle of Empire all the way down to the end of the road. District 8, which is the old District 7, becomes a minority district. Go up to 7. And you can see the clean line. You see the clean line here. You see the clean lines. Keep going. Just keep going. Keep scrolling.
I'm kind of curious. There's a large neighborhood in the middle of my constituency. That's a big.
Because we wanted to assure, Richie, that District 8 was a minority district, to make sure we had 2 minority districts.
So I'm not even understanding which series of maps is this right now? Is this your version?
Yeah.
Is this the school board's version? Is this Kognovich's version?
This is V2.
This is version 2.
You're like super worked up over there, and like you're not even being clear what map we're on.
Super worked up. This is V2, yes. This is version 2. I'm not sure if you can't see that V and the 2 on the top. It's right on your screen. Keep scrolling, please. Same thing. Clean lines. Come to 7.
What are you talking about?
The
There's like a
green is
bridge.
marsh.
There's
The
like
green
a-
is marsh, Mr.
Like a
Blank.
bridge in the middle of the thing.
Okay,
It's-
keep going to number 8. And then you see Judge Ben Hold in the blue. Keep going. District 6.
I really wish a third party could just come in and do this. Then it would really be fair. This,
I don't disagree with that either. I love it too. I wish,
I thought we had somebody in already doing that. We hired someone.
we hired somebody who works for 5 people.
Oh, he works for 9.
Well, in this situation, I believe he worked for 5.
It works for 9. I remember many days you had 5. You ain't had 9. But you had 5, and it still prevailed. And
So-
it was no big deal.
Okay, that's enough.
how many public meetings were held to discuss redistricting and maps around the parish?
3.
So there's,
However, these maps were not,
Okay.
that's the point. These
So-
maps were not done by that time. We've asked for more public hearings to show these maps in contrast to the other maps. That's as simple as that. And we asked for them to be published in the official journal, which is the
So,
Gazette.
Of these 3 public meetings that were held throughout the parish, how many public comments were garnered through that process?
You know what? Then finish reading the public comments, please.
There were 0.
Okay, now finish reading the public comments. This is prior to the vote. So you already read one by Mr. Becknell. Please read those public comments, because you asked the question. Here's the public comments.
Corey Ilg. To whom this may concern, redistricting is something that will affect a community in a particular area for 10 years. We all know the population shift that has occurred over the last 17 years, and it should not be ignored. The splitting up of communities and rushing the process is not right for anyone, especially when a deadline is months away. When these redistricting meetings were presented and aired on social media, it was presented as a rough draft, not final documents for approval. So if there are different options that don't split communities in half or separate them by rivers or several miles of land, that option should be considered too. The next is from Chris Schultz. I would like to know why we are rushing through this redistricting map. At the Belle Chase redistricting meeting, the council gave the impression that once a map was proposed, there would be time for public discussion. That has not happened. This map was proposed 14 days ago and now being voted on without any discussion. This map was not proposed at the redistricting meeting, as some have indicated, because Mr. Garrett said, and I quote from the video of the meeting, "This plan has not been introduced by any school board member, has not been introduced by any council member. It's just a depiction of what could work," end quote. Based on the comment, this map was not introduced then, and that one will be introduced at some point, which was 2 weeks ago. Where's the public discussion? Some have outright refused to look at the other map options. I've seen both versions of the maps that members have brought up, and each has their good and bad, but why can we not sit down and discuss and come up to a compromise? Based on what I see, the map being voted on today will be a 5-4 vote, and to me, something this important should not be a 5-4 that impacts for years. I believe we are just rushing through this without giving all the options a chance. Also, how is this legal to be voted on today? Per Mr. Garrett's presentation, it cannot be voted on until after 20 days of the first publication in the newspaper. This was introduced 14 days ago and published after that, so there has not been 20 days. Again, why not defer this and vote next month and actually have some real discussions on the very important issue? And this email was sent by numerous people, by Scott Morris, Chris Hodis, Jenny Hodis, Megan Rice, and Mona Spell. They all wrote, "Good afternoon. I have a strong interest in our district and communities being consolidated back to one voting block. We are unique and have none of the attributes of the surrounding districts. I would like to see us represented as such and not divided in half. Please work on our behalf to solidify the map and unite the Jesuit Bend area." And then the last is Denise Robichaux. "Hello, I am in favor of keeping Jesuit Bend one district rather than splitting into 2. Please consider for the good of our community." And that's it.
Thank you. I yield.
Commissioner Gui.
Back in, when we had the public hearings, we had 3 public hearings. We had one in Buras, one in Belle Chase, and we had one on the East Bank. I didn't get to attend the East Bank, but I did attend the other 2. And during the discussions, it was stated that we wanted to go through the process. We wanted to explain to the public what the difficult process we as a council had to go through. Mr. Garrett did an excellent job, very concise, to explain the federal laws and the processes, how it would take place. I made some comments that we wanted public hearings so that we could generate some interest in the public. As Mr. Blink stated, we had no comments. At each of the public hearings, the questions that were asked was simply to explain the process. And we did have some questions to that effect, and Mr. Garrett, again, did a good job to explain that. I stated at the 2 meetings where I attended that we felt that 10 years ago, the biggest criticism we had was the public was not involved in the process. In order to try to prevent that from happening again, we agreed to the 3 public hearings. One of the comments I made was that we did not have a plan at that time, but we did have an idea of what could be done, and Mr. Garrett explained that very well, that this was not a plan, this is something that could be done. And I had stated that what I would prefer was that once a plan or plans were introduced, that we would have some type of public forum to explain that further to those who were interested, if there were anyone interested. We didn't know, but at least we wanted to have that opportunity so as not to repeat the comments that we had 10 years prior. The day that the first version was introduced, I had a conversation with the chair and told him that we had a meeting set up with Mr. Garrett. We could only bring 4 council members in, but if one of the council members could not make it, that we would bring another member in. And the purpose of that was to look at a second map. I did not know at the time that there was going to be an introduction at that meeting, but when we got to the meeting, the introduction was made, but that didn't mean that we still couldn't have a second or third plan that could be introduced. And that didn't mean that we couldn't open it to the public to at least have a look at, to see if we could get further comments. The plan that Mr. Black has put forward was not held from anyone. We didn't tell Mr. Garrett not to give any maps out to anyone, although it seems like that did happen, and unfortunate that it did. The 2 things that I see on this map, 3 things that I see on this map that I agree with. One is consolidation of districts. As Mr. Black said, clean lines. Now, when you look at this map, you don't see clean lines because a lot of it is marsh. There's no census blocks in there. But when we look at where the census blocks are, there are clean lines delineating them from 9, 8, 7, and all the way up. The other thing that Mr. Black brought up that I think is very important is growth patterns. Historically, the growth patterns have been in the northern end of the parish. There's been reasons for that, natural disasters being the top. And the other is that percentage-wise, there's been more growth in the Belle Chase area with new subdivisions and stuff. So the maps, the percentages deviated, that were deviations from 10 years ago, got skewed because of the growth in this, basically districts 2, 3, and 4. So in order to try to buffer that, as Mr. Black said, we felt like that growth pattern was going to continue. So we did a lower deviation in the northern end and a higher deviation in the southern end to try to see if it would balance out, and we think it would balance out over 10 years, to get back to as close as we can, and I know we'll never get it exact, but as close as we can to a one man, one vote. And that's why there are deviations of 5% up or down, because it's very difficult to pull a census block and get the exact numbers. That's the process as I've seen it, the process as I've understand it, and as what has taken place. So if we're not going to have both plans presented, then I suggest that we go ahead and vote on this today and put the issue behind us. There's just some basic principles that I feel we could improve on, but if it goes the other way, we're not going to die. We're going to still operate, but there will be some compromises, and that being the one man, one vote that was discussed, and the clean lines and consolidation of districts, so we don't have these little finger projections. And Mr. Black was right. There were some finger projections that in the map that was presented showing sitting council members and sitting school board members. Those little projections were made to include where those residences were, and that's just a fact. So with that, I'll yield, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bowie. Mr. Arbor?
Yeah, Dr. Gu, you took the words out of my mouth. All my notes you had stated, but I do want to stress that when the original version 1 map was created, every school board member, council member was asked for their address, and that's how those maps were drawn. Although it's not illegal, I truly believe it's unethical, and by no means should maps be drawn like that. When Daniel Morrell, school board member Morrell, and Tesevich and Bo and I and Dr. Gui and Trudy sat down, that's not how we drew version 2. But again, Dr. Gui and Bo have pretty much said everything, but I would like, because it still was never answered at the last meeting, but if Danny Garrett cannot answer the question, maybe Rennie can, about the 20 days that we were promised the public that it was law. Is that not law? Did we violate the law? And also, since we did violate open meeting laws in the creation of version 1, is that map still legal to continue with? I yield.
With regard to the 20 days, we make this similar presentation that we have made it multiple times in different districts.
You can't hear.
Can you hear now? Okay. We make that similar presentation, so we use the format that we had used in other districts. There is one school board district, East Baton Rouge Parish School Board, that actually has a special statute that does require that, in its revised statute 1758.3, they do have to actually publish in their official journal 20 days before they vote. And when I was changing the slides to adapt to Plaquemines, I inadvertently left that line in. I don't actually recall talking about it simply because it doesn't apply to Plaquemines. It only applies to the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board and no other school board in the state of Louisiana. I don't believe that any of the meetings were held in violation of the open meetings law. Now, we did have meetings where we set them up for time so that individual members could have their opportunity to meet. Some met in 2 or 3, particularly when you had people who were adjacent or you had the same school board. Once the school board got involved, and I'm not sure which meeting Mr. Arborough was referring to, because just as a timeline, the council hired us well before the school board did. In fact, we actually had a whole round of meetings and confected a draft before the school board ever engaged us. And then the school board engaged us, so we had a second round that included all the school board members. If any member, because I was stationary the entire time and we had a schedule, if there were any opportunities where more than 4 members were in the room while I was working with the members whose time slot it was, I have no recollection of that. And certainly no one raised it to me at the time because I would have told them to leave. And I don't recall that happening in the second round where the meetings were held in this conference room, and we did them in 2 different conference rooms. But that was never brought to my attention ever, because I wouldn't have continued talking. I would have said somebody's got to leave before I can keep going. So, I mean, if that addresses the 2 questions Mr. Arbor had, I'd be more than happy to answer any others.
Mr. LaFrance.
Yes. I am truly surprised to see that Mr. Arborough talked today. Because when Mr. Konovich said about the phone call that he received about what he said, that we have Benny Russo voting with the people on the southern end, but when after the next election, that we're not going to support nothing on the southern end. We're not going to get anything on the southern end. And he used this word, unethical. What could be more unethical than that? Now, I sat on the school board for 24 years. And after we constructed our schools on the southern end, we still had square footage left over. There was kids right here in Belle Chase that was in trailers. The school board members from the southern end was adamant that we wanted those kids out of those trailers. So the new building you have over there right now at the primary school came from the people on the southern end. We didn't make no difference. It was still our children. But you, Mr. Albro, when you're going to make the statement that we're not going to get anything on the southern end, that's where the problem hit. That's what the problem hit.
Never made that statement, and I don't appreciate you saying that in a public.
Well, why didn't you say that when Mr. Konovich was here? Because I'm more than sure at the next council meeting, he'll bring it up.
Discuss it then.
Mr. Bartholomew?
Everyone knew that redistricting was taking place. Since the census, people came in to take census. It's over a year ago. Somebody can tell me they didn't know what was going on. Right then and there, tell you that whatever your anticipated plans are, whatever you wanted to do, you had 2 years to make your recommendation to this council for us to look at it, or to Mr. Garrett, who, by the way, is above reproach. He's outstanding at a lawyer. He represents this council with dignity, without no reservation whatsoever. I didn't agree to everything he did. Still don't agree with it. But according to his job description, legal advisor, he's doing it by the book. And I have to respect that. It's like our chairman, Sister Chairman. He has a belief about making it right for his representatives, for his district. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what we're supposed to do. And we are getting away from what our responsibilities are. We are to unite, not dissolve, unite. But every time we have issues where our beliefs or our concerns are not a priority, we come up with faults. We come up with accusations. We come up with blame. The fact remains that we will redistrict. We have redistrict, and we're going to evidently vote again today on another proposed change. But we had done, and everybody had ample time before that vote took place to be there. Yeah, a lot of council members didn't participate. I don't know. School board member never called me, told me about what their plans were. I don't know that. Nor did any council members that was working on the plan ever call about telling me about a plan that they proposed. Who has a diverse more than I do? Who has a judgment of being moved in an environment where you don't belong? Not just being a human being, but because of your population and the people you serve on the East Bank. We are being placed in the naval base, air base. So how are you going to represent those people? You can't even get on the base like talking about. How are you going to talk to them? How are you going to go see what the needs are? And what needs are you going to provide, if any? But it was a question, without a doubt, that every majority of the people, our council members on this end, was in agreement to put the East Bank and the naval base together to make one district, District 1. So we no longer District 1 on the East Bank. We are being compromised with District Belchase on the West Bank. So I guess that's all right, huh? That's all right. You know, I don't think so. But the idea is what it is what it is. The law is the law. So if anybody have any gripe about feeling messed over in this process of being let down or left out, it would definitely be the East Bank. And after Mr. Garrett, for several times, went over this and explained this to me over and over and over, I still didn't want to hear. I said, there's got to be something different. Still didn't believe it, didn't want to hear it. Because we've been used to this all our lives, now it has changed. And I accept it, after my conversation with different people. Not only in the parish, throughout the state as well. and information from the federal entities as well. It's not about where you live. It's about following the guidelines of the law. That's all it is. The rule of the law applies. You have to follow the rule of the law. There's no difference when it comes to that. One man, one vote. And however it can be done, it's done. Now, the proposal that was passed last council meeting been on the table for discussion. It just didn't happen. It's been on the table for discussion. I had several meetings with the council members on the lower end, with Mr. Kondovich, about his proposal. 3, maybe 4 different meetings. So I still don't agree. Still not there. Don't understand it. It's hard for being a vision person, it's hard for me to visualize that. Because I can't see as a representative me getting out of my bed anytime of night going to see somebody across the river on the naval base. When I'm going to get click, click by the security guard on the base. They ain't letting me on the campus. Can't even go campaign over there. You see, so where's the candidate's right? Solicitation. All that's involved when you look at something, the right to do things. That's all I'm saying. But we do know one man, one vote. That's the law. But, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bartholomew. Look, this is the toughest item that this council is going to take up in 10 years' time. It should be done with the utmost transparency, openness. It should be in this room with projectors on the wall. Anybody should be able to walk in and out of here and it get done right. I think this council did the best they could. Do I think the people of Jessup Bend are represented as they should be, split down the middle? 50% of the population there was in District 8. 50% of the population was in the southern end of the parish. No candidates even ran from there. It is what it is. There's a lot that I'm not happy with this plan. This is the first I'm seeing it. My neighborhoods are just cut through the middle. There's a lot that I'm not happy with the other plan. We're in a box. Census districts are drawn by bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. somewhere. They are not drawn by us. We have to follow them. They're completely arbitrary. Railroad tracks, bodies of water, canals, they don't mean anything. You back out of your driveway in Adam Drive, you're suddenly in another district. You know, it's really sideways. But the way this was done wasn't my favorite. I feel excluded from any sort of school board plan. I didn't even go bother to chase it because I was hearing my colleagues were saying that when they would ask, they weren't able to receive it. It was a confidential document. So I can't support this. But I tell you what, I would be interested in supporting a new crack at all of it. Yield. Commissioner Newberry.
Yeah, I just don't believe that if we would have had the opportunity to put the 2 maps out there, then everyone would have a chance to be heard. So I know, Mr. Blink, I've heard that some people have reached out to you, their opinions, and I'm not sure where you lie with that. But I think everything was, in this V2, I think everything was definitely done fairly. And it's not that I'm against the other one or against this one or for which whatever. It's just my point is just getting some maps out there, and like Dr. Gui, maybe another map, just getting more voices being heard and getting more opinions, and just try wrap our heads around it and see what's works for everyone. But obviously we're in this situation, and I think we all sitting here just wanting to do what's right for the people, and we all have our different opinions. But I yield.
Call a question. Oh, yeah, I'm certainly, sir. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Tyrone Edwards, went to Altoma Land, Phoenix. You know, I am really shocked by the discussion, hearing these words of the people, the public and the people, one man, one vote. Those are very pretty, flowery words. And I heard Mr. Black get upset when Councilman LaFrance talked about Jim Crow. But the one man, one vote comes from the discrimination of African people in this country who wasn't able to vote. How when people, after enslaved people got the right to vote, then you have blacks in Congress, you have black in state. Matter of fact, Plaquemine Parish state representative and senator during Reconstruction with two African Americans. The school board. But then something happened in 1898, disenfranchisement taking place. The Confederacy lost the war, and these Confederacy people took over Congress. And the Confederacy came in with a whole lot of stuff to take it back the right to vote from people. That's a fact. We can say that, yeah, we're going to put 2 minority districts in here, but if you're stacking the deck, but you can have 6 votes every time you need to vote, it's a joke. If this was going to be fair, you wouldn't even talk about 9 members. You'd be going back to when Plaquemine Parish had a 10-ward system, and you wouldn't have no problem with the number. But so all these flowery words about the people, the public, and as far as the Gazette, I'm really disturbed with the Plaquemine Parish Gazette. Because the Plaquemine Parish Gazette on this position was no different than their position when it was supposed to be in a voice piece for Perez during segregation. The Gazette was one-sided in the way they reported this issue. Darrell Lynn is the president of the school board. And I've been in touch with her about stuff that she didn't know. So this stuff about who don't know who, this is a game being played. I mean, I wish we would be consistent all the time about one man, one vote, educating the public. I've been around seeing this council when there's a 5-member council. I know when it became a 10-member. And let me just say this, when Merle Bruce and Ernest Johnson did this districting thing, what people really don't know what really happened. They did it because of discrimination, because black people would not have an active representative. But what people don't know, Mr. Pivac and other white people were supporting that because even white people could not select candidates. Because Perez determined who got elected, you didn't have no elections at all. So when Ernest and Merle did that, everybody was able to run for office. So again, this jargon about one man, one vote, you really need to understand what that really means. Mr. Bartholomew couldn't do a better job. The East Bank been the Baptist child of this parish for a long time. I was like Mr. Bartholomew. What the hell going on here? Dr. Goury and I had this 10 years ago conversation. We can use the naval base. And I said, well, what happened if somebody like Mr. Black can find a way to get information to the people on the naval base? Then East Bank is in trouble. So you talk about Jesuit Ben, but look what the East Bank is. The East Bank being messed with. All kinds of ways. Let's stop playing games. You got beat at your game. The hunter got captured by the game, accepted, because there was a lot of wheeling and dealing. Darrell Lynn, the president of the school board, she didn't even know nothing about this other school board plan as a school board member. She didn't know what was going on. And the last guy from the school board was at the last meeting. He came up with some nonsense that didn't even make no sense to me. It was 5 votes. That's the majority. He said, yeah, but one of the one of the school board members from District 9 voted for it. Well, one of the Belchester members had to vote for the school board position in order for it to be. It's some ludicrous, all this information. I don't know if this is a performance for the people in Belchester, who you doing this performance for. But when you're going to talk about people not being stupid, we're not stupid either. So I don't know what people you're talking about. We know the game. And I want to go back to Gazette. The Gazette was one-sided in this. I looked at the reporting of the Gazette. I was at meeting, and things that was said was not said. The stuff that benefit the people who putting this up to date, that's the side the Gazette took. The Gazette shouldn't be one-sided because it's supposed to be the people paper. Unless it's going back to being the paper that was during school segregation and put everything that Mr. Perez said he wanted in the paper, it's the disgrace. I'm just saying one man, one vote. We for the majority voted, the school board. What I love about it, the school board and the council voted for this thing. I'm like Mr. Ptolemy. I'm still not happy with the East Bank in that. but it's the best thing we got because the government took out Section 5 clearance. I've been filing voting rights all my life. I'll be 70 this year. I've been doing this work for 53 years. And this is one of the things that I work on the most, this voting issue. Because I know as a black person in this country, our rights are being taken away. I know that the Congress that we have now is doing everything for voter suppression. And this move is no different, even though you're saying 2 majority black districts, but you still, instead of going back to your 5-2 council, you say, let's just do it by redistricting. We get 6 votes every time we need it. Come on, people are not stupid. Stop playing all these games. Stop showing the bands and the whistles and whistling Dixie. Stop that foolishness. People are not stupid. We're past that. So when you use the word people, you got to define who people you're talking about. What public you talk. I don't think that, Mr. Black, when you talk about people in public, we're talking about the same people. When you talk about people not stupid, I don't think you're talking about the same people that I'm talking about when I talk about people and when I talk about public. When you say educate the people, I don't think you're talking about educating the same people that I'm talking about. And so I'm saying, let's move on. And if we really want to be the fair thing, to make it right, based on how they all just go back to what they had before, a 10-ward system. You go back to 10-ward system, we could do. Most of the reason why people don't do 10-ward system, they say because the amount of money it will cost the council member, and if you reduce the council salary, you ain't going to get qualified people. In order to get qualified people, you got to pay them money, which I think is ludicrous. So that, we can look at this thing, play all kind. I'm not a mathematician, but I know if we would change the 10-ward system, the kind of conversation we were having now wouldn't happen. And that would be for the people, by the people. That would be a more representative form of government. But stop trying to hide behind public hearing and transparency when the fact that your plan that you're trying to put in to make the guarantee that you can get 6 votes. You know, Charlotte Perez told me something a long time ago when this 9 single-member district came up. Charlotte Perez said, you're going to regret this one day. He said, because the way this thing, he said, Belshare is going to end up controlling Plaquemine Parish in the end. He said that. He said that. And I'm seeing this coming true today. It's coming true now. So stop using Jedward's Bend as the issue when we got issues in Plaquemine on the east bank of the river. So I hope y'all just drop this issue and let's move on. And 10 years from now, come back again and do 10-ward system so we won't be talking to schools.
Blank, I have one question for Reverend.
Sure, go ahead.
So Reverend, in other words, what you are saying is, ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun, huh?
There you go.
Hi, Mr. Henry.
Ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun. Hey, you need to just move on. What the rabbit is? You need to move on, accept it the way it was last 2 weeks. Listen, this deal right here, you got to tell it like it is. It's about politics. Whether we like it, whether we don't like it, you consolidate those districts. You're going to have a big 5 majority in Belshare, which you already have now. But the way it is now, your district, Richie, at least the people from Nara Road could be included with some of these decisions that have to be made, man. They want to move your district to District 8. All that happens right now is in District 7. That's where the port at. That's where the money at. They want to keep the majorities out of that deal. Hey, we got to look at all these issues. We got to look at it and we got to be real with it. We got to be real with it. I live in Belshare. But if we give everything to Belshare, I can guarantee you the East Bank, the lower end, you're never going to exist, guys. You're not going to exist.
Already treated like a gangrenous limb sometimes. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Henry. Danny, Daniel Morrell, would you mind stepping to the mic? I've got some questions. I just haven't got to talk.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, could you tell us a little bit about how your plan came about and at what point you started reaching out to members Newberry and the others, or when you maybe reached out to Mr. LaFrance or Mr. Bartholomew?
I think Nico explained it pretty well at the last meeting, and I know y'all cut him off pretty quickly. It basically went, me and Nico requested Danny Garrett's assistance. Every map that we had been shown, which was one, had always been told to us it was a draft, a working draft. So we asked to work on a draft. That was it. I got COVID, Nico got COVID, it got pushed back. Mr. Garrett got on a Zoom call. I think we were on that call for 3 hours, working numbers, moving the lines, making sure they were clean. There was none of this, oh, the port's there, oh, the people. It was all numbers. The first thing we said was take every incumbent's address off of the map. We didn't care where anybody lived. And we went from there, and we made numbers. It was all numbers. We made sure the joints, the lines, everything was nice, clean. That's all it was. There was no backroom deals. There was no, don't give this map out. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's Mr. Garrett's policy not to give the map out. To my knowledge, Nico never said, don't give the map out. I have no clue. If anybody wanted to see the map, we showed it to them. It was still being worked on. It was still being worked on up until Mr. Habo submitted his at the meeting. We had every intention of having an intergovernmental committee meeting to show the map. That all got sped up when Habo introduced his map. That put us on the clock.
How come all that wasn't communicated with a simple email?
I think Nico tried to do that at the last meeting and you cut him off at 2 minutes.
I wasn't running.
Well, somebody did.
But
I mean,
just if
there's nobody's trying to treat down the road like gangrene, like you make the comments. Nobody's trying to do that. We were just trying to make the lines clean. That was it. Jesuit Ben, they came to us. They did not want to be broken up. You saw the emails. I mean, I don't understand. You talk about your constituents. You got a bunch of them right there reaching out to you. And what do? What do y'all do? You don't even listen to them. You don't listen to them. You talk about transparency and you're not doing it.
Danny, I didn't run the last meeting.
I understand that.
Make the call when the emails.
But when we came up and said we would like to do an intergovernmental committee meeting and maybe make a third map, nope, I like my map. It was the exact words I heard on the TV. Nope, I like my map.
From who?
From Habo.
Hey, that's not
Mr.
me.
Kognovich. I'm all about, let's put it aside, let's go for a third map. The city of New Orleans has 4 maps. 4 right now that they're looking at. Plaquemines Parish has 1 that has been a draft. To date, as a school board member, I have never got an official map from Mr. Garrett's for the Habo map. It's always been a working draft.
Is that true?
Well, first of all, and Mr. Morrell was on the call, with the Zoom call, you had to leave. Nico and I ended up working for about an hour or so more. We finished up. I asked him at the end of it, who do you want me to share this map with? And he said, just me and Daniel right now, because I think he wanted to wait. The next real communication we had about it was the setting up of the meeting where they essentially used that as the base to become what is now V2. So I did ask him if he wanted me to share it with other people, and he said no. And that is my policy. And when we first talked about this, that is our policy. We don't. I think that individuals need to have the freedom to work on maps, because sometimes you work on stuff and it looks like, and then it leaks out, and then everybody goes, well, that's not what I meant to do, if you send it to everybody. The first version, the first draft, was actually completely done with the council because the school board hadn't hired us yet. We then had the second round. As far as I knew, everybody had an opportunity to see that. I didn't know Mr. Kognovich was going to introduce his map until he called me a few days before the meeting and said, I want to introduce that draft as my plan. First time. And like I would do with any member, I drafted the ordinance. Same thing as I would have done if Mr. Tesevich had said, I want to do it. I want a version to go to the school board. I would have sent it to him. He had it. I was told he wanted it, and then he would decide who got it. And I think he subsequently did start showing it to people, and I think he did provide a copy of it to Mr. Kognovich. I mean, in fact, I actually had a member who found out that we had had a meeting and said, well, tell me what's in their map. And I said, I don't feel like I can. Go call them, and if they tell you, send me a copy of the maps, I'd have done it. So that is the policy that we had in place. And if anybody wants to tell us to send their maps to everybody, they can. But sometimes there's reasons why they don't want to. And they're not necessarily nefarious. Sometimes after you spend 3 hours and you saw it, looking at that thing, sometimes you need to close your eyes a little bit and then go back and look at it. And I envisioned that's what he was doing. He wanted to go back and look at the maps and make a determination as to how he thought it went. Like I said, the next time I heard about that map was the ask to set up the meeting with the 4 council members that using, I think they used the port facility because they could have the big TV. My recollection was I asked him, who do you want me to share it with? And he said, just me for now, and we'll, I'll make that decision later. Because I think he did think, and again, I didn't know Mr. Kognovich was going to introduce his map. When he introduced it, I didn't know he was also intending to move the matter forward to the next meeting, because that's not my purview.
So there you have it. The boogeyman in the room wasn't the boogeyman in the room.
I don't think that's what I was insinuating. But I'm just kind of curious, at what point you reached out to Newberry, at what point you reached out to me? Y'all had a team assembled, and
No, we didn't have a
we
team.
weren't on it.
No, I talked to my councilman quite frequently. That's who I reached out to. Nico reached out to his council member, and that's how it went. They reached out to the council members from there.
Sure. I mean, the first I heard...
We could only have 4 in the room. We had every intention, Richie, of having an intergovernmental committee meeting with everyone invited up until the point when Habbo introduced. It put us on the clock. It was done that day.
Did you ever think that could have went differently if you would have put that in an email?
Absolutely. Looking back at it, absolutely. But all Habbo has to do is defer it. We can all meet in the room in an intergovernmental meeting, and we can move on. But why rush? The city of New Orleans has 4 maps. We have one. It's been a draft. We have members that haven't even seen it. But they voted for it. Is that transparent? Is that fair? Is that representing your constituents? Because I don't think it's representing mine. I'm not going to vote on something I didn't see the map of. Still don't have it.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Commissioner LaFrance.
Question?
Mr. LaFrance? Okay.
What's the call for?
All right. Split decision. 3 nays, 4 in favor.
Any further comments, or did I hear you?
Not on this particular item, sir.
Call for the question, that's what I heard. Okay.
All right. Moving along, please.
Item 9B is deferred. 9C is deferred. 9D and E are deferred. 9F, an ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan, Restore Act East Bank Land Bridge project, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Bartholomew.
Offer is read.
Second.
I have a question. Mr. Helmers, can you please explain this project? What's happening here? It's Restore Act funding.
That is Restore Act funding for the East Bank Land Bridge that's in the 2017 master plan to provide the beginning of the permitting phase to start building the projects along the East Bank side.
Got it. Were these particular projects passed over by Quipper at this past round?
Absolutely not. They were just voted in. Actually, the Davant Marsh creation, and then you have Grand Lake and Oak River, which is approved for construction, but Davant is approved for engineer and design. It was just one at this Quipper round.
Okay. All right. And what's the total funding needed for
This is a beginning of $500,000. That's already been approved by the Restore Act Council.
All right. Thank you very much. Any questions? Audience? That's a 7-0.
Item 9G, an ordinance to amend the 2022 Road Maintenance Fund operating expenditure budget, road maintenance, public right-of-way department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Konovich.
I'll offer this for Cognovich in his absence. Okay, any questions? All right, would anybody like to second this item?
Second.
Seconded by LaFrance. All right. Any questions? All right,
Administration.
audience?
What is this for?
Yeah, this is for the 4 tractors that we'd like to purchase to get rid of some of the old ones. We do have operators for them through Prong Department, and it's a much-needed item for grass cutting on the highway, the levees, servitudes.
Much needed. And this comes with the bush hog ends too, as well as the tractor?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? All right, machines are open. Item passes 7-0. All right, moving on to item H, please.
9H is deferred. 9I, a resolution authorizing the parish president or his designee to do all things necessary and proper to negotiate, execute, perfect, and enforce a cooperative endeavor agreement with the Croatian American Society and otherwise provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Konovich.
I'll offer this on his behalf. Seconded by Arborough. Are there any questions about this particular item? Audience, move forward, please. Item passes 7-0.
Item 9J, an ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan, Oakville to La Receipt back levy project, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Newberry, and we do have changes for this.
Oh, sorry.
After the preamble, there was a whereas added, and it states, whereas additional funding is required for the Oakville to La Receipt back levy project for inspections and acquisitions and then under section 1, the fill in the blank, it says the drainage Jesuit Bend project, and that is it.
Yeah, I'm going to offer this, and thanks for a second. Yeah, this is, I'll tell you what, I'll turn this over to John, make sure he answers any questions. This is just for the inspection. I think we tried to hire somebody, John, and we weren't able to, so now we have to third party out an inspector, and then we're looking at basically, what, $300,000?
Right. We had last year tried to bring in an in-house inspector, which, as y'all know, didn't work out real well. So now that this project is on the line, we need to have a RI inspection team come in to move this project forward. So that's what we're bringing to you today. And then there's some additional funding for some of the acquisitions that were a little bit more than what was budgeted for originally.
And John, what's the cost of an in-house inspector for this particular job?
I cannot answer that question. I don't have them figures or that position. We did have one applicant that came in, was qualified and didn't pass the physical, and there's no one else applied ever since. But we cannot wait any longer on this funding, on this project. We have to get this project completed.
Councilmember Bartholomew.
Just when the money is available.
Yes, the money is available.
It's not deducting any other any other project.
It's coming from Ms. Newberry's drainage fund that she has.
Yes, and this money strictly is going to be,
I'm just trying to make sure it's not coming out of a project that's going on.
Oh, no, ma'am.
Okay.
No, sir. No, sir.
All right, thank you. That's all I need.
yeah, and it's strictly for this project, so anything
No
that comes
problem.
under will be able to have excess.
Good.
Any questions? Hearing none, moving forward.
Thank
you. 0.
Agenda item 10, approval of the minutes from the February 24th, 2022 regular meeting.
Second.
Offered by Bartholomew, seconded by LaFrance.
Agenda item 11A, there's none. 11B is deferred.
First C as well.
11D, District 1 update, Councilmember Bartholomew. 1, status of the progress on the culverts on the back levee from Phoenix to Bohemia, and 2, status of the Davant Center air conditioner.
I'd like to take a point of privilege. Do we have anybody from Breakaway Park in here left? Do I have any residents in Breakaway Park? Okay, hearing none. The culverts have been done. The air conditioning has been done. Money been appropriated. Everything is done. So you just can withdraw those. Thank you.
Item 11E, District 7 update, Councilmember LaFrance. 1, update on the levee project from Point Celeste to West Point Lahash. 2, discussion on notice of determination sent to communities of Ironton through West Point Lahash. And 3, update on Hurricane Ida and elevation and permanent housing.
Since the president not here, I'll defer those items.
F.
11F is deferred. 11G is deferred. 11H is deferred. 11I, discussion on the update on ordinance number 19-92 adopted August 8, 2019, authorizing the president to remove the Empire Shipyard sheet pile wall, and resolution number 19-158 adopted May 23, 2019, authorizing the president to institute a public notification system to notify the public of closures and openings of the floodgates in the parish. Councilmember Blink.
Yeah, sure. We'll start with the notification system for the floodgate. John, do you have a few moments? Yes. Yeah, sure. So there's been new equipment that's been installed at the Empire floodgates. This particular ordinance that helps commercial fishermen know the status of the tide, the status of the floodgate, has been in play for 2 years. Can you give us an update on when a technological system or service is going to be in place to let folks know what the status of these floodgates are?
All right, the Corps has installed some new gauges, and one on the inside, one on the outside. They're available via website, which I will get you the exact website address. This has just happened over the last 30 days. They finished up everything. So that data will be available to them via website. We are also working on a SCADA system of our own to have an additional backup in there so that we know when to close and open the floodgates also. But there is some information out there right now. It's on the Corps' website.
Do you know the estimated time of completion where folks, what we really need is something user-friendly on the parish's website? Maybe a dedicated.
Well, I can put a link to the Corps site, and it'll put you up and show you the gauges.
Sure, but that's a red and green type light to let people know online so they could be working on their oyster beds or on their shrimp boat up until the very last second.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the Corps site how that would read out. I mean, that would be development, IT development, and an app development to put something that specific out there.
Sure, I mean, you're in charge of the.
Right. No, I mean, it's all about funding. I mean, I can build anything you want as long as you provide me the funding to build it.
Got it. Do you have like an estimate on maybe
I
the
don't
cost,
know
that
because
kind of
you're just asking me to do this, but I can get an estimate of what it would take to build an app like that.
Oh, no. I asked May 23rd, 2019.
Well, I wasn't in charge of the gates back then. Sorry.
I'm just trying to make things easy.
No, I agree.
And I've never had an original idea in my life. It's all what people come and ask me. I'm just trying to make things easy.
I have no problem. I'll look into it.
You know, when they ask, I just can say, I've asked years ago.
And I will look into it and see what we can do, and I'll give you a price on what it'll cost to build a system like that.
Got it. All right. So another piece of, and this might be in your wheelhouse here, so to speak, but on August 8th, 2019, we approved an ordinance authorizing the parish president to pull down the sheet pile wall. I've waited around. We had the 100th anniversary of the church coming. We were tired of the place looking like Katrina just happened. I made 3 phone calls, people start showing up, you know, and the thing is, I asked them to come take a look. I didn't tell them to take any
I have to
action,
defer on
but
all that. I can't answer any of that stuff. You have to wait for the president to speak on it.
just, we feel real forgotten. And the thing is, when we're trying to take care of ourselves down there, and we actually get some progress, and this administration shuts us down, it's very, very disheartening. And when I say that the lower end of the southern end of the parish looks like a gangrenous limb sometimes, we feel like we're just being cut off, we really do get that vibe, because that job could have been completed. And, you know, if folks needed to check to see if they had insurance or workman's comp or whatever, you know, we should have just went that
Again,
direction.
I have to defer that to the president to answer.
We just want to see action, y'all. It's really disheartening. Just help us out, you know, because like I'm not running again. It's not like this is some kind of thing for me to have some kind of glory. I really want things to work good. And y'all would be able to have some downhill running. Look what y'all did. Look what the administration did. They cleaned the place up. They made a thing where we know what the tides are doing, you know, here. We know what the floodgates are going to be, so I could work just as much as I can. You know, y'all could help people out a whole lot, man, make the place look a little better. Just help. But yield. Action. Next agenda item, please.
Item 11J is deferred, K is deferred. 11L, deferred or withdraw. Item 11M, discussion regarding Diamond Park. Councilmember Newberry.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this up for discussion again. Mr. LaFrance is here, the rest of the board is here. I know we've had some emails a while back. You said Scott had went out there to look at, we could possibly, we don't, like Dr. Gui said, we don't want to be in a business. Is there any possible way that we can just lease the property and have anyone interested to put their efforts and time and money into something like that to provide some space, maybe not a big man camp, but just small enough to bring in some RVs, so.
It's absolutely possible, Ms. Newberry. But as you know, council controls real estate. And if the council deems it necessary to declare that surplus property, then we can go out for bid and try to lease that property to someone who might be interested in doing that. As I stated in my director's update before the last council meeting, it was recommended that the council put together a real estate committee so the council members could get on the same page with this real estate, and council members could tell us, this is the property we want to declare surplus. This is the property we don't want to declare surplus. We want you to do something with this one. We don't want you to do something with that one. I don't know what to do unless the council declares it surplus. There's nothing I can do with it. So Scott and I, as you mentioned, we went out and took a look at Diamond Park. The little bit of infrastructure that they had left in Diamond Park has been damaged severely. It would take a lot of money to put it back, to put the infrastructure back. But we're absolutely amenable to whatever the council's wishes are. If the council wishes to declare it surplus, we will certainly go ahead and try to find someone to lease that property to put trailers in there.
Well, as far as Diamond Park, I'm going to leave that to Mr. LaFrance, since it's in his district. I know Mr. Russo had expressed probably leasing it out too. I don't know how everybody else feels. So I'll just leave it up.
Again, please consider putting together a real estate committee with the council members so you guys can tell us what direction you want to go in.
Okay. Thank you. No input from anyone else on this subject matter? Okay. I yield.
Motion to adjourn?
Oh, we're going to go back to just number 8, please.
Introduction.
What is it? What is that? Oh.
I've got Mr. Garrett working on something he should be done just here momentarily.
Waiting on Jeff to give me a proposal.
Yeah, if you'd like to go ahead and read that. Is it okay if Danny reads into the record? Okay. All right. All right. Mr. Garrett, please.
All right, resolution establishing a real estate committee and to provide for other matters attendant thereto. Whereas there are times when a real estate committee is needed to establish and determine and recommend which real estate owned by the parish should be declared surplus. Whereas the determination of surplus of whether real estate should be determined surplus is required. Be it resolved by the Plaquemines Parish Council that there is hereby created a real estate committee appointed by the chairman to advise the administration as to what real estate should be considered for determination of surplus.
Thank you very much. All right. Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Black, seconded by Arborough. All right, thank you very much. All in favor, GUI absent? All right, I'd like to call this meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Council to close at 5:48 PM.